Hello, welcome to my channel. Another bibliophile reads. I'm here today to do a tag video, the Nonfiction Journey Tag. The version of this tag was created by Hannah at Hannah's Books. It is based on some earlier iterations of some other tags. And this is a really good introduction to tell people about nonfiction, about my in praise of nonfiction is really what I want to call this. Because even though I read more fiction than nonfiction, I really do love a good work of nonfiction. I was originally tagged by Hannah in her description notes, and I was tagged by Roz at a Scaladalian about the books. I also think I was tagged by someone else. I know I'm behind in my tags, but I'm doing this one a little bit ahead of schedule because we are celebrating Nonfiction November, and I do kind of want to get this tag out in November. There are 10 prompts to this tag. What was your first experience reading nonfiction? I read nonfiction in high school and university when you have to do research for papers. I remember sometime in high school I did a paper on the Salem witch trials. I have no idea what book I read for that. I read a lot of nonfiction in university, but again, nothing stuck. The book I'm picking is the book that actually flipped the switch in my mind that told me, you can enjoy reading nonfiction. It's just not about gathering knowledge. And the book I am picking is a book that I read in 1992 when I was a wee 28-year-old. And this is The Devil's Music Master by Sam H. Scharwenka. This is about the German classical music conductor, Wilhelm Furtwängler. And Furtwängler was often accused of being a Nazi collaborist. And in this biography, the author is saying, no, he did not collaborate with the Nazis. I don't know if that's true or not, but I read this just at the right time. I was single. I didn't have a girlfriend. I loved classical music. And this biography captivated me. Is it a great book? I don't know. I read it in 1992. But the younger me loved it. And it is the book that flipped the switch in my head saying, you can enjoy a nonfiction book. Prompt number 2. Has the reading a work of nonfiction ever brought you to tears? I don't think so. I am not a crier. When I read, I'm a little more analytical, a little more distant. So works of nonfiction or works of fiction, generally speaking, will not make me cry. Prompt number 3. Are there any people who have played a significant role in your nonfiction journey? I don't think so. I got through high school, I got through university without really enjoying nonfiction. And then one day I picked up The Devil's Music Master and that switch flipped. So no specific person has prompted me. No one was there guiding me saying, nonfiction can be really great reading. I wish there had been, because I'm a rather late comer to nonfiction. As I said, I was 28 when I discovered that it was good. Maybe if I had a mentor in my youth pointing out, hey, it's pretty good stuff in those books, things would be different. Prompt number 4. Do you enjoy documentaries? Do you have a favorite? Is there a subject you'd like to see discussed on film? That is, what should Ken Burns film next? I'm not a big movie watcher, even for fiction movies. I'm just not really into movies. It's really a shame. I think there would be some great documentaries I would enjoy. But if given the option of sitting down on my couch and reading a book or watching a movie, I am always going to pick up the book. The only time I watch movies is when I'm sort of bamboozled into it by other people, which is a shame. I'm sure there's some great documentaries out there. Prompt number 5. Have you read a biography about or memoir of a person of whom you identify? Not really. I was a student of English literature at university who, through twisting ways, became a computer programmer. There's not a whole lot of biographies of people like me. There are no memoirs that I know of people like me. So I guess the answer to that is no. And frankly, I probably shouldn't be, because computer programming is a rather dull, monotonous job. It's just a job to me. I never really enjoyed it. But it paid the bills, helped me buy a house. But no, nothing along those lines. Prompt number 6. Read aloud a short passage you love from a work of nonfiction. I'm going to pick up something very odd. It is a work of nonfiction, but it's a very idiosyncratic work of nonfiction. It is described as a philosophical inquiry from a literary writer. The passage I'm going to read for you is one sentence long. The author uses a hell of a lot of semicolons. Now, when I was at university, my writing professors say you can only have one semicolon per sentence. This author really busts that up. And it is a sample of what you can do with nonfiction, which is really off the normal ends. You will not find this kind of writing in a typical work of nonfiction. And to be honest, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I really enjoy it. I'm also going to have to use this to help me through it. All you young people watching, reading glasses are your future. So sentences are copied, constructed, or created. They are uttered, mentioned, or used. Each says, means, implies, reveals, connects. Each titillates, invites, conceals, suggests. Each is eventually either consumed or conserved. Nevertheless, the lines in Stevens or the sentences of Joyce and James pressed one another into being, as though the words before, the words after, were those relevant hands both Rilke and Rodin have celebrated, clay calling to clay, like mating birds, concept responding to concept, the way passionate flesh congest every note, a nipple on a breast, at once a triumphant pinnacle and perfect conclusion, like pleated water. I think I said, yet at the same time, another anonymous cell, the selfless in its service to the shaping skin as lost forgotten matter, and is in all walls. These lines, these sentences are not quite uttered, not quite mentioned. These sentences are not quite uttered, not quite mentioned. I repeated myself. Poorly, particularly employed, strangely listed, oddly used, as though a shadow were on the leaves, limbs, trunk of a new tree, and the shade itself were thrust like a dark torch into a greasy air in some slow and forceful way, as its own roots, entertaining the earth, roughen the darkness, there till all its freshly shattered facets shine against themselves of teeth due in the clenched jaw. For Rabelais was wrong. Blue is the color of the mind in borrow of the body. It is the color consciousness becomes when caressed. It is the dark inside of sentences, sentences which follow their own turnings inward out of sight, like the whorls of a shell, and which we follow warily, as Alice after the rabbit, nervous and white, till suddenly they're climbing down, clauses passing through, and there the letter N is sort of above the other letters. As it opens, there we are in time for tea and tantrums. Such are sentences we should like to love, the ones with love us and themselves as well. Incestuous sentences, sentences which make an imaginary speaker speak the imagination loudly to the reading eye. That is the kind of orality transmogrified, not the tongue touching the genital tip, but the idea of the tongue, the thought of the tongue, word wet to part wet, public mouth to private, seed to speech, and speech, after exclamations grown with order gone, disorder on the way, we subside through sentences like these. The risks of senselessness like this, to float like leaves on a restful surface, that world of words to come, and there in peace, patiently to dream of the sensuous, imagined, and mindful sublime. It's nonfiction, but it's poetic and it's wild, and makes your mind race. On Being Blue, a philosophical inquiry by William H. Gass. Prompt number 7. Do any works of nonfiction intimidate you? Which ones and why? The works that intimidate me are the scholarly ones, the academic works, the works written by a historian who wants to prove he has done all his research and make his point known to other historians. That kind of thing. That is not the kind of nonfiction that I want to pick up to read because it's often very dry. It is somewhat out to prove a point, an academic speaking to other academics. And you do see that in a lot of, let's just say, history books. And unfortunately, those are the kind of books that I will put down and not finish. Prompt number 8. What tips would you give to people hesitant to read nonfiction? Nonfiction can be every bit as entertaining and enlightening as fiction. People have put this barrier saying nonfiction is somehow harder to read than fiction. That is not true. You can find nonfiction works which are extremely hard to write or read, like the academic works of nonfiction, the history that I explained before, or works of philosophy, which can be incredibly dense and take lots of skill and working up to read those books. But they can also be remarkably entertaining and easy to read as a work of fiction. Just pick up a work of nonfiction and read it. You don't necessarily have to read on a subject you're interested in. Maybe that would help, or maybe it will open your mind to something different by reading books that you're not familiar with, which sort of leads to prompt number 9. 9. What are your favorite works of nonfiction? I'm going to give a list here, a little bit long. I'm not going to go into too much detail. The collected dialogues of Plato. Plato, as a philosopher, was more wrong than he was right, in my opinion. But by reading his dialogues, you will learn to love philosophy, that which he teaches. He teaches you to love learning knowledge, and you can't pick it up anywhere better than Plato. Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. John Krakauer was a sports journalist, a writer, who was assigned to talk about people climbing Mount Everest. And he joined as a mountain climber. He was really on the cusp of being a professional mountain climber before he turned to journalism. And this is the story of a disaster on the top of Mount Everest, where a number of people lost their lives. And this is a great introduction to nonfiction because it is an exciting story. It is real. You can feel the pain in John Krakauer's writing when he's coming down off that mountain, realizing that people have died and he could not save them. Fantastic. Carl Sagan, The Demon-Haunted World, subtitled Science as a Candle in the Dark. I think this book should be assigned in every high school or every university because the knowledge that he has to teach in this book is absolutely needed in our country desperately. In a nutshell, it is to teach people how to detect baloney. And baloney is Carl Sagan's word. I would use another B word. How to detect baloney is very important. It is the love of science and what science, a scientific mind, can do. Really, it should be assigned reading. All the mothers of liberty would probably be really upset because they don't want people to learn for themselves and to be able to detect baloney. The River of Doubt by Candace Millard. This is subtitled Theodore Roosevelt's Darkest Journey. This is a presidential biography. It is a very narrowly focused biography because Roosevelt went on a journey exploring an uncharted river in the Amazon. They don't, as I said, they don't make presidents like Roosevelt anymore. And again, this is an extremely exciting biography because Roosevelt is on an uncharted Amazon River, meeting things that no other president will ever meet and coming very close to death. Mind Children by Hans Mubarak, subtitle, The Future of Robot and Human Intelligence. This book may be a little outdated now, but in this, Hans Mubarak, who was a roboticist at, I believe, MIT, saying how we can transform or transform a human mind into a robotic mind and essentially give people immortality. And again, I'm sure this book is a little out of date by now, but it opened my mind to the possibility of what science can do. I'm not sure if it's in this book or one of his other books, but Hans Mubarak says, if humans ever want to explore space, we need to do that as intelligent robots with the human intelligence in that mechanical body, because the meat suit that is the human body is not going into outer space and trying to travel over light years of distance that you would need to in space. The Power Broker by Robert A. Caro. This is the story of Robert Moses, who was very influential in building up New York City in the way that we see it today. And Robert A. Caro is really interested in how people use power and abuse power. And he goes into extremely detailed situations describing how Robert Moses used and abused power just to get what he wanted. And this book is ginormous. It is possibly one of the longest books I've ever read. In this version, it is 1,100 pages of text, and there's a lot of text on each page. But still, it's a fantastic biography. I actually prefer his now 4-volume biography of LBJ. I just don't happen to have the books to hold up to show you. But Robert A. Caro is a fantastic biographer, and either The Power Broker or his books on LBJ are magnificent. Now, here is a work of history that entertains and educates. And this is A Worse Place Than Hell by John Hudson. This is subtitled How the Civil War Battle of Fredericksburg Changed a Nation. And this is essentially the story of 5 people who gathered and met. Now, they not physically meet, but were part of the Battle of Fredericksburg. And this is history as it should be, because he's telling you what it was like in the Civil War through 5 different perspectives. Really good. And he is not a scholar, so you don't have to worry about he's out to prove a point to other scholars. Just a great read. And here, lastly, is to show that graphic novels also come in nonfiction. This is Heretics by Stephen Nadler and Ben Nadler. It is subtitled The Wondrous and Dangerous Beginnings of Modern Philosophy. The Stephen Nadler is the author, and his son drew the pictures. And this is all about philosophical heretics. And, I love heretics just because I'm the kind of guy who likes that kind of thing, So if you're interested in philosophical history and thinking it'd be a little dry, pick up this graphic novel about heretics and how they formed modern philosophy. And that is the end of the Nonfiction Journey Tag. A lot of people have been tagged in this. I am going to go out on a limb and tag 2 people who I don't think have been tagged yet. That would be MJ at Reading This Life and Jim at Books, Reading, and Stuff. And I hope you got to the end, and I hope you appreciate and learn something about reading nonfiction, because they really are some great books for everyone. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.